I'm glad I didn't get fired.
It was definitely like a lot of pressure that I put on myself.
I was ready to quit school.
Why is it so hard to get a job? Should I do something else?
I was like, oh crap, I shouldn't even be here.
Definitely more failed interviews than ones I've passed.
I changed it to like the wrong value. 20,000 payments didn't go through.
It's that time of year again. Intern season, which means that LinkedIn's about to be flooded with people flexing their big tech internships and cool startup jobs that they have for the summer. You might have seen one of these posts before and thought, he's going to Meta and Google? Man, these guys are built different. But what you don't see are the failures, rejections, breakdowns, and the nights where you genuinely think, maybe I'm not cut out for this. So, for the third year in a row, I went to Hack the North, Canada's biggest hackathon, to ask interns from companies like Apple, Meta, and Twitter about the lowest points in their journey and how those moments actually helped them succeed. And they all go to the University of Waterloo, where doing 5 to 6 internships is actually not unusual at all because it's part of the degree requirements. So stick around because this is the messy, unfiltered side of success that you won't see on LinkedIn. All right, we are here with
Angel.
What do you study and what year are you in?
I study computer science and I'm in 4A.
Victor, computer science, and I am in my last year, 4th year.
My name's Emily. I studied systems design engineering and I graduated 2023.
Daniel Zhu, computer engineering major, and I graduate in 2026.
We're actually wearing the exact same outfit.
It's the craziest coincidence.
So what's your name, school, major?
My name is Nick. I go to Waterloo for computer science. I'm in my 4th year.
Most recently, I was at Stripe, and then before that, I was at X, or Twitter.
I was an intern at Ramp this summer. I interned at Snowflake after.
I've been at Uber as a APM, an associate product manager for the past year.
I spent the summer in New York interning at a database company called Cockroach Labs.
So this summer I actually completed my last internship at Meta, and then previously at Microsoft, Apple, and Bloomberg.
Damn. Have you ever failed a tech interview?
I have failed interviews before.
Yes, I've failed plenty of interviews.
Yes, many times.
Many. Yeah, definitely more failed interviews than ones I've passed.
I failed a lot of tech interviews, not gonna lie.
Tell us about your worst.
Bro, okay, so 2 years ago, I was interviewing for LinkedIn, and I made it to the final round. For my technical interview, I was asked a LeetCode hard. Actually, a variation of a LeetCode hard that was harder than the hard. At the time, I was really bad at LeetCode. I'd maybe done like 30 questions total. I actually ended up solving the problem on the spot. It was a very rocky ride because, I obviously wasn't very skilled. I didn't really know what I was doing. But eventually, I got it working. I was feeling like really happy. I hear back maybe like 2 weeks later. So at this point, like day by day, I'm kind of slowly losing hope. And meanwhile, I had a friend that also interviewed for LinkedIn around the same time as me, and they heard back like 2 days later. So I was just coping the whole time for 2 weeks. I was just like, maybe the recruiter's on vacation or something. Yeah, eventually 2 weeks later, I heard back, got rejected. I guess I wasn't prepared enough, wasn't skilled enough, and ultimately failed the interview, final round for LinkedIn. I was really sad for a while.
There was like one interview that I did 2 years ago at Grace Hopper, and it was for HRT, and that was like my first trading interview that I had ever gotten before. So it was definitely like a lot of pressure that I put on myself. And the interview was also in person, which was like something that I had never done before because of like COVID and stuff. So I think going into it was like a lot of pressure. And then she asked me a lot of questions about like operating systems, but like that was a class that I had just started taking. So I was like 2 weeks into the course. So there was just questions that I had like no idea where to even like approach or like how to even go about it at all. And because it was in person, it was also awkward, and like I just like didn't really know how to navigate that. So I think like right after the interview, I definitely like felt kind of bad about it, but I think it didn't take that long to bounce back just because I thought about it and I realized that like there was no way I was going to be able to pass. Like I just was not ready. After I learned the course, I actually like reapplied the following year, and then I was able to pass the interview. So.
Wow, that's awesome. That's character growth. Let's go.
It was a mid-sized company. I really wanted to work for them like last year, and they asked me to disjoint set union question, and I was not too familiar with the concept. So it took me a very long time to answer. I was super excited to have solved it. Then 3 days later, not as excited when they rejected me.
Why do you think they rejected you if you solved the question?
I think half of the interview is actually having your interviewer like you. And I don't think he did because I was focusing on solving the question. I really wasn't talking to him the entire time.
I think this was maybe my third co-op. I really wanted to do the Microsoft Explorer program for that co-op because I wanted to break into product, and that was like an opportunity where you could do both software and product. So I just remember like putting so much work into prepping for that interview. Like didn't study for my midterms that week. And then I did the interview, and it was like basically a whiteboard question. And I think I was just so nervous that my mind just blanked. I was writing pseudocode, but I just know that I was like getting all the terms wrong. And I was like, oh, I don't think my solution even makes sense. And I think coming out of that interview, I was like, man, I put so much like work and time into it. And I think my nerves got the best of me, did not get the job. And I just remember that one was a rejection that like I felt really, really sad about.
And hearing all these stories of failed interviews, honestly, it's a reminder that getting your foot in the door is often the hardest part, especially if you're coming from a non-traditional background. That's why I'm excited that this video is sponsored by TripleTen, an online coding bootcamp that helps people with busy lives transition into tech. I actually got a chance to sit down with one of their grads about what it's actually like to go through the TripleTen program, and his story was super inspiring to hear how he went from being a complete beginner to now being a full-time software engineer with the help of TripleTen. Dillon, your career path didn't start in tech at all. Can you tell us what you were doing before TripleTen? And what made you go, okay, I need to make a serious change?
Before TripleTen, I was actually going to college for accounting and finance. And prior to accounting and finance, I had actually done ground school. So I was also pursuing aviation a little bit. I actually got like 6 months into my bachelor's degree and realized I really didn't want a mundane career like accounting. I wanted something that would, challenge me. I wanted to be in a field that was constantly growing and evolving. And tech was just that. And I had no prior experience in tech. So I'd actually seen an ad on YouTube while working remote for TripleTen and was like, okay, this sounds really interesting. And I'd always known what software engineering was, but I'd never thought about it. So the marketing team, they got me. Their ad it hit the right spot because I looked into TripleTen and looked into the career path. And I really, really liked what I saw. I liked the idea that it was challenging. And so that was kind of when I realized, okay, I'm going to enroll and I'm going to try to make this career change and I'm going to try to tackle it head on.
And when you started TripleTen with basically zero tech experience, not even knowing what HTML was, what was that like? And how did the program support you as a total beginner?
Yeah, I mean, there's certainly a learning curve, but TripleTen has a very good support system. They have like tutor assistants, tutors, and expert tutors. There's probably 10 or 15 tutors that you have at your disposal to set up one-on-ones. And all of those tutors do office hours at different times.
Yeah, so I know you were working a full-time job while doing the boot camp. How did you manage it all?
Oh, the flexible format is great. I actually worked a full-time job while learning. Being able to do that was massive. It not only allowed me to afford the boot camp, but it allowed me to keep my job. And so there's a little bit less risk in doing the boot camp. They're super flexible and they have office hours set up with tutors, even outside of the normal 8 to 5. And so they really support being part-time and they really support people that have a full-time job that are trying to shift careers.
What sort of projects or hands-on stuff did you get to work on while doing the TripleTen bootcamp?
So TripleTen offers a ton of like hands-on projects. They start with a project for every sprint. And so there's, I think, 6 or 7 projects that you build and you get to add to your portfolio. And then I would say the most important thing that TripleTen offers was an externship. The externship was about a 4-month-long project for a real company that works alongside TripleTen. You essentially work in a team of 6 or 7 other developers, and then you have a lead developer, and you're essentially building and maintaining code for a real company and a project that they're wanting to launch. This was awesome because this gave me a ton of experience working in a team and understanding how PRs work, understanding how to review somebody else's code before you launch it into production. It also looks really good on your resume. Having that 4-month-long externship experience, I think it went a long way for me. This also allowed me to work with new tools. So I used TypeScript and Tailwind CSS, which are 2 things that we did not learn in the bootcamp, but we learned in the externship. And so there was a ton of learning with the externships.
So you ended up landing a job after the program. Congratulations. Can you walk us through how TripleTen helped during the job search and what that transition into your first tech role was like?
Once I graduated, TripleTen offers a career acceleration program. And this was awesome. I think my favorite thing about the career acceleration was the mock interviews. That made a big difference. I mean, I remember being super nervous going into a mock interview, knowing it's not even a real interview. But it was the first time that I was going to be coding in front of somebody and talking out loud. Another thing they provide is cover letter and resume iterations. So the resume is super helpful because that's the first thing recruiters see. And so having TripleTen and having the career coaches go over your resume and, edit it for you and give you suggestions was massive. That was my favorite thing.
So for someone out there who's watching, who's stuck in a boring job or thinking that a career in tech is just too hard, what would you say to them based on your experience with TripleTen?
As long as you have faith in yourself and confidence that you can learn these materials, and if you're passionate about what you're learning, it's going to be a lot easier than you think. There's definitely a learning curve, but TripleTen offers a very large support system There's always somebody there to answer your questions, break your questions down, and explain them in a lot of depth. And TripleTen's also very much so beginner friendly. They expect most of their students to come in with no experience. And so the platform is very much so easy to use. They break down the problems in great depth. They have hints that you can use while working through tasks, and they welcome people that have no experience. I had no experience in tech, and I ended up getting through it and getting a job. And so there's no reason that you can't as well. For anybody that's getting cold feet while looking into TripleTen, TripleTen is very confident in what they teach. And they actually offer a money back guarantee. And they actually have an 82% job acceptance rate after 6 months. And so it's really important to look at those things when considering TripleTen.
And if you're still not convinced, you can at least get a free career consultation with one of TripleTen's career experts using the link in the description below or by scanning the QR code right here. And if you're interested in one of TripleTen's programs, you can use my code Nicholas for 30% off. Thank you again to TripleTen for sponsoring this video. Now back to the interns. Have you ever made any mistakes at work? Maybe you broke something, brought down prod?
Yeah, I have actually.
Pretty much once a term that happens.
I was interning at Ramp this summer. So at Ramp, you really have this there's this culture of doing things yourself. So we had this API key that was out of date. So I was gonna change the value myself. And then when changing it, I changed it to the wrong value. And because of that, customer payments went down for a few hours. It's 20,000 payments didn't go through. I thankfully I caught it pretty quickly, but my entire night was just fixing the repercussions of this error.
This was in the middle of the night?
This was at 4 p.m. I was right about to go to a happy hour as well. I was actually incredibly upset that I made such a breaking change before a work event.
How are you feeling once you realized that you broke something?
As soon as I realized there was an error, I created an incident, this concept of getting all the necessary stakeholders involved.
Yeah.
Definitely didn't try to downplay it. I owned all of the consequences. This was my fault. I think everyone is pretty understanding. There's a culture of never blaming anyone, but just rather working together to solve the problem at hand.
At Meta, I was on the Gen AI team. A lot of teams that were really critical to production, like Meta AI, for example, where they had very set deadlines, depended on the work that we were doing. One feature that I pushed actually was missing this one part of logic that I didn't understand when I was reading the paper when I was trying to implement it. So then it was missing this chunk of logic, and when I was testing it on my data sets, everything was fine. And so the data set that this one team happened to be using just showed the problem way more, and they realized that something was wrong, and so I had to fix it at 1 a.m. one night.
How did you feel when you realized that something was wrong?
Not good. I think I was definitely pretty stressed out, so it was definitely a lot of pressure to fix it, but I think in the moment I kind of just locked in. I don't know, because I feel if I were to think more about it, I would spiral, and then that just would not be productive. So I kind of just locked in and finished it and fixed it, and then after I fixed it, I was kind of it's fixed now, so it's not that serious.
That sounds like you handled that very well.
Thanks.
It was a pretty small company. So there's just 2 interns and our manager, 3 engineers. My manager was, busy running an interview or something, and we needed to get something merged. And so he told me to just merge his PR because he was busy in an interview. So it wasn't my PR, but I went ahead and I approved his PR and I merged it. And then 10 minutes later, 15 minutes later, I get a message in our general channel. Hey, is the website down for anyone else? And I'm oh shoot. And the CEO responds, yes, it is down. I'm oh no. It's just the 3 of us. And my manager's in an interview. And I don't think it's the other intern, so it was probably me that did something. And I check, yep, the website's down. It's not working at all. It's just erroring. It didn't build. I was oh shoot, what do we do? And then the other intern was oh, don't look at me, it's your thing. I was okay, I'll figure it out. Luckily, it wasn't too hard. I just went to Vercel and I just rolled back our deployment. And then, within 5 minutes, the website was back up. And I had to look at why that PR broke prod. But yeah, that was definitely really scary because our whole website, nothing was working. Everything was down for probably a solid 15 minutes. In that moment, I just knew to calm down, roll back, because, if you break prod, just roll back to the last stable version, and then you can fix it after.
So a few years ago, I was working on a REST to GraphQL migration, and everything was looking good, and I did all of it in around 2 weeks, and I was really happy with the result, tested it and everything. But one of our clients was not as happy when everything decided to break. I forgot to migrate a few HTML metadata tags essentially, and this ended up breaking everything for them. I was pretty stressed. For around like 3 or 4 days, I was like, oh crap, I shouldn't even be here. But we ended up fixing it. I had a lot of help from my mentors. They're great. I'm glad I didn't get fired. Yes.
And throughout, schooling, recruiting, and at work, has there ever been a moment where things have been really tough and you felt like giving up? Maybe tech is not right for me.
Yeah, definitely.
Has there ever been a time where you felt like giving up on tech, pivoting, not wanting to continue anymore?
There's been a lot of that. All of the above, actually.
Yeah, so second year, I ended up getting matched with a job on Waterloo Works that I didn't really like, and Waterloo kind of makes you take the job that you get matched with. And I decided then and there it was time for me to become a real estate agent. So, I was ready to quit school. I was ready to get my real estate license, going to set up my marketing and everything. But I decided I'm just going to live it out for a bit longer. And I ended up really enjoying this term. I spent it completely alone, found out a lot about myself, and also obviously had a great time at my internship.
I made a video about this, but back in first year in my first semester, the first calculus midterm, I literally got a 39 on.
Toughy.
And I was like, yo, I'm not built for this. Why is there so much math in CS? Like, I thought this was just coding. Coming from someone in high school who was always at the top of the class to like failing a midterm, it was like foreign to me. And then in terms of like career, Waterloo makes us do 6 internships. So every like few months I'm going through this recruiting cycle. And every time I've been applying to like 100, 200, 300 jobs and not getting anything from it. Or like at most maybe getting like one offer out of like 300-400 applications. It's so soul crushing because I spent all this time recruiting, preparing for interviews. For the interviews never come. Spending all this time on recruiting just to get nothing out of it. I was like, why is tech so hard? Like, why is it so hard to get a job? Should I do something else? You stick it out and then incrementally over time you get better and better and it gets a bit easier. As long as you never give up and you keep putting in the work and staying positive, eventually something works out.
Around the story I shared around my Microsoft interview failure, that was also the term that COVID hit. So after that interview, I did a bunch more interviews, eventually got a job that I was pretty happy with, but then COVID hit and then my offer got rescinded and now it was like a month into the co-op term and I didn't have a job. And I think that period of time combined with us like adjusting to this world that we were living in during the pandemic was pretty challenging. I was trying to job search, but like so many jobs were just not hiring. And I think also that time I was questioning, like, do I even want to work in a tech job? Because that was also the term I was trying to get a product job as well. Right. There was a period of like, maybe I shouldn't even do tech. And eventually, like, I think a month in, a startup was hiring and they gave me my first, I worked as a software engineer first, but they were the ones that ended up giving me my first product role later on too. Yeah, that was definitely a pretty low point, but it ended up helping me a lot later on.
How do you think these hardships and these challenges that you faced and overcame have contributed to your success and helped you get to where you are today?
Yeah, I think you pretty much learn, obviously, from every single thing that sucks that happens to you. And things can seem like they just purely suck. Like, there's no reason why. Oh, got my heart broken, rough. Failed a leak code interview, rough. A lot of things, they seem like they shouldn't happen at all, but you'll realize you can pretty much take something good from every bad situation that happens to you.
What do you think it was specifically that you gained from all these L's?
For my case, it was a lot of resilience. I think I was a little baby boy back in like middle school, start of high school, in which I felt really down every single time something bad happened. Take like maybe a week or two to get over anything, sometimes months. And I think now it's just like a fact of life that things are going to suck at times. It's about getting back up as quick as possible and kind of learning from those mistakes.
I think over the years, I've just learned to like not take rejection super personally. And I also learned to kind of like view your career goals in like a broader sense. Like I think you should set like high level goals for yourself. So like, for example, like I want to work at like X type of company, or like I want to be doing like work in like X field, or I want to live in like this city. But then like how you get there doesn't necessarily matter. And just know that like eventually you will get there, because I think then it takes pressure off of like individual interviews or like individual like steps in like the recruitment process, because then it doesn't feel like one company is like end all be all.
I think Waterloo definitely toughens you up through the number of failures you have to go through and the number of rejections. I think it like doesn't really phase the average Waterloo student to like apply to 50 jobs and maybe hear back from like one. It builds a certain amount of work ethic and grit into you that you need not only for like recruiting, but just like anywhere in your career. career. Now being in industry, I'm really realizing how much people like Waterloo students for exactly like the grit and perseverance the school builds into you.
How do you think all these hardships and setbacks that you described helped you to get to where you are now?
Getting rejected a lot, I wouldn't say it like made me numb to getting rejected, but I just kept getting rejected and still applying after. Like at the beginning, it'd be very discouraging, like, oh, why do they not want me? Am I not good enough? But then after enough rejections, I'd be like, oh yeah, this is like normal. Just get rejected. But I'm gonna still keep applying. I'm gonna still keep working towards my goals. It makes me feel better knowing that I can be knocked down and like come back stronger from that and like do better in the next application.
Given that you're kind of at the end of your co-op internship journey, approaching the end of your university career, do you have any advice for your younger self or for other people who might be going through similar things?
Yeah, I think it's really important to realize that you're not alone. Like a lot of people out there are having rough times. No matter how well people hide it, I think the majority, all of you, including me and Nicholas here, are probably suffering in some sort of way. And I think it's incredibly important to realize that no matter what you're going through, someone's also going through something similar, and you're all going to get through it, you know? Everything's going to be all right.
I think the biggest thing I would tell myself during those periods is that one internship is such a small part of my overall career, and just to like kind of zoom out and look at the bigger picture. Like even if things might not seem like they're going as well as I would hope now, perseverance is that's the most important thing. And as long as you keep putting effort in, like maybe you're not going to get there immediately, but at some point, like 2 or 5 years down the line, you'll look back like I am now at myself in second year, and it's like, okay, like everything ended up working out. So it's not the end of the world if things don't end up working out for one co-op or one internship.
So you got to trust the process.
Yeah, trust the process. That's a
awesome.
great summary.
I feel like you should always be focusing on like the process and not the results. Like if you put in hard work, I feel like naturally you will get the results you want. So even if you don't see the results you want in your current situation, I firmly believe that if you put in enough work, you will actually achieve the results you want.
I think like the biggest advice that I can give is like it's just not that serious. Like it's not that deep, and like I think like if it feels hard now, I think in a couple years or like even a couple months you'll look back and like realize that it was just never that serious.
And how do you think you came to realize that?
A lot of times where I was like super stressed, looking back at it now, I realized that like it was never that serious. Like for example, if I like failed an interview and I was like super upset about it, but then like I think now I've still gotten to a place where I'm like proud of and like somewhere that I want to be. And like sometimes I think failing the interview is like what is necessary to get you to this point.
When I was like looking for like my first internship or a lot earlier in my career, I think I was very focused on trying to get like one of those like big tech jobs or like a really well-known job very early in my career. Yeah. But I think what you should really do is actually value like learning at the beginning of your career. And you can learn at least for your first co-op, you can learn at pretty much any company, but even for subsequent co-ops, there's so many companies where you can learn. And it's like, if you work at big tech, it's not necessarily true that you'll learn the most there. You'll probably learn a lot more if you work at a startup. And I think early in your career, you should be focusing on learning and building your skills. And then you can apply them to, if you want to go to big tech, you can apply them to big tech, and it makes it a lot easier for you to be good at your job. But I think early in your career, you shouldn't be optimizing for like, try to get something really well-known, prestigious, clout. You should be focused on learning and trying to get better. And you have like 40 years of your life to chase prestige and like make it to these companies. You have 6 internships, or at least if you go to Waterloo, but you have a lot of time. So don't rush it. Enjoy each one and just focus on learning, trust the process, and eventually you'll reach your goals.
That's facts. All right, awesome. Thank you so much, Nick.
Today we're at Hack the North, and we're going to be asking people about their failures in their career and how they got to where they are today. Are you pumped, Catherine? Super pumped!
I'm dead. I'm actually dead.